Guitarists are really overconscious about playing slowly because all we want to do is play fast. But we know we can't, so we try to play slow once in a while so we can go back to playing fast. But basically, you're missing a whole spectrum of feeling in between playing slow and playing fast. You know, there's everything in between. Don't miss that, okay? So if you want to play with feeling, you want to use all the tools at your disposal, and playing in between is just as important as playing slow. Playing music is all about building up to a climax. So you want to start softly and then gradually work your way up to something that's really intense. Now, if you do it the other way around, you will have used up all your headroom. So don't start with the fastest run you can think of. Don't start with hitting the loudest chords. Don't start with the most extreme vibrato. Start out softly and build to a climax. That's the general rule. It's not about the exact notes you play. It's about the atmosphere and space you create in your music. And your most important tool to achieve this will be pauses, okay? This should be good news for you. You can improve your feeling by not playing at all. And having pauses in your music has numerous advantages. It will sort of define a clear start and ending point of your phrases. And it will also help you avoid those long scalar runs, which can often be really boring and not have any feeling at all in them. So you can picture your sax player. What happens is, you play a little bit and then you have to take a breathing pause. And if you can do the same thing when playing your guitar, it will definitely lift your amount of feeling up to a new level. Okay, so computers cannot play with feeling. So show your human sides and don't always play on the beat. Most of the time, it will sound better if you play a little bit behind the beat. That is also referred to as playing in the pocket. It's a matter of just being slightly behind the beat. And on some occasions, it can sound good to be ahead of the beat if you want to create like a kind of rushed atmosphere in your music. To achieve this, you obviously, if you're a beginner, have to start off by trying to play on the beat. Chances are you won't make it anyway, so you won't sound like a computer in the beginning. But when you do start getting control over your playing, then it's a good idea to stop thinking about always being on time and think about being off time. And that adds so much character and feeling to your playing. Picking dynamics. You have to understand that the guitar is not a really dynamic instrument compared to vocals or sax, like wind instruments. So we really have to make use of the few tools of creating dynamics that we have at our disposal. And the most important one is how hard you hit the strings. Okay, so just let me demonstrate how this sounds compared to, or even, that sounds boring, but to me, when I alternate between playing softly and hard, that's when I create an interesting line that has a lot more feeling to it. Especially if you combine it with my previous tip about not playing on the beat, then we really start getting into the feeling territory. And similarly, you should also experiment where you pick the notes. Because there's a whole spectrum there as well, and it will sound brighter the further back you go. It's not that one is better than the other, but you have to realize that to get some feeling going, you have to use all those tools. So in other words, you don't want to constantly be playing back here, and you don't want to constantly be playing here. You want to alternate and create as much variation as possible, and try to get a feeling for when the music calls for a brighter sound, or when the music calls for a warmer sound, you can pick here, or when a phrase calls for using both. Perhaps the beginning of the phrase should be aggressive and the end of the phrase should be soft. So you could hear the huge spectrum of dynamics there. I hit it really hard. I even accidentally created a pinch harmonic, and then I slowed down. I was really playing with the tempo there, and I moved my hand up here and got a warmer sound. So. Now here's a tip that doesn't require any feeling at all. You can either play the notes that are contained within the chords of the backing track, or you can play the notes that are not contained within the chords of the backing track. But before you start venturing into those outside notes, you should really learn to hit the chord notes as the chord changes go by. Because if you can do that, you will instantly be declared a genius, and all you did was to learn some theory, okay? So it doesn't require any feeling at all, but the end result will have lots of feeling in it. Now here's an obvious one. There is absolutely no way you can play with feeling on the guitar without considering vibrato or bending. That's the #1 tool to make you sound like a human with feelings as opposed to a computer. Now there's a lot of misconceptions about vibrato. The point is not that you should sit down and practice vibrato with a metronome, but rather to find a matching vibrato for whatever you're trying to play. You can either have a fast and intense vibrato, or you can have a slow one, and everything in between. There's a whole spectrum in there. Also, playing with vibrato is pretty much the only way you can make the guitar sound in tune across the entire fretboard, because guitars by their nature have severe intonation and tuning problems. So vibrato is pretty much mandatory in order to not sound completely wrong when you're playing solos. Now, if you're planning on recording yourself jamming, and this is something I like to do a lot, then you might want to plan the first notes or the first licks so that you're not completely improvising the whole thing. This has numerous advantages. First of all, the first seconds are really important to keep the listener. So if you want to have people listen to your entire jam, then make sure the first notes are really good. Now also, I find it good to define the feeling of the jam in the very beginning. So if I start it off in a good way, then I will sort of be able to keep building on that feeling throughout the entire solo. Now, just like I told you, picking dynamics are really important. I find it equally important to have a dynamic sound that allows for those picking dynamics. Now, if you have a lot of distortion or compression on your sound, it's going to be easier to play the faster runs. But since all your notes will have the same level and same volume, it's going to be really difficult for you to use the whole spectrum of feelings that are contained within the soft notes and the loud notes, etc. So therefore, I find it really hard to play a longer solo with lots of feeling if I don't have a dynamic sound. So for example, this sound. If I hit it hard, it's going to sound very differently and react differently as opposed to hitting it softly. And I actually get more distortion and stuff like that happening when I hit harder. I use the Kemper profiler for this sound, but you can get an equally dynamic sound even using free software if you spend some time tweaking. Here's the last tip, and probably the most important one. You should think before playing, okay? You should have a goal where you sort of define how you want your playing to sound. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter if it actually ends up sounding like that. By setting up a goal, we're letting our mind dictate where we try to go, as opposed to letting our fingers do that, okay? That's essential. As always, when setting up a goal, the idea is not necessarily that you have to reach your goal. It's just the fact that having a goal helps you move forward. And it's exactly the same thing on the guitar. If you have a goal, then you will not mindlessly be playing the same licks over and over, but you will strive to achieve something that you're hearing in your head. Now that vision is going to change over time, and if you're like me, you're probably never going to achieve it, but that doesn't matter. You have to set your goal up here, not here. Thank you very much for watching. Now let's jam.